G'day, welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a frequently requested but a comment about the upcoming or the gun bans in Western Australia. And I suppose I haven't been doing any videos on it because there's nothing really to report. Things are going forward as the police minister put forward. They have a gang of regulations of which we have a rough idea. And things like reducing the number of guns that firearm owners can have. There was talk of mental health checks. And I suppose the truthful, I can't go into much detail. It's basically bringing on a lot heavier restrictions for firearm owners, which are already heavily restricted. It's not talking about anything to do with illegal firearm owners. It's talking about restrictions on legal firearm owners. So people who are already licensed and very heavily regulated already. And I suppose the big picture is there's people who they recently did a gun ban that took away some of the larger long-range cartridges or rounds that carried a lot of energy downrange, a long way downrange, and they banned those. And people are a little bit along the lines of that's because of those, and it's just they're too powerful for people, and if people didn't shoot them, we wouldn't have any bans. It's not the case at all. What's actually going on is it's a way to start taking more guns off the community. For some parts of our government, elected and unelected, and around the world, there is a goal, an agenda to disarm the population. That's the simple truth of some parts of it. In other situations, and in this situation, what this really is is a thinly veiled form, is what they see. Some parts of the WA Labor government, and there'll be other sides of the government that do the same thing, but they see it as a vote winner. But to the general population, if they take guns off those guys with guns, and guns are bad, if you take them off the streets, it makes them safer, so it's a vote winner. That's how they see it. So ultimately, that's the game that's at foot. There is an organisation, its main spokesperson is Paul Fitzgerald. It's the WA Firearms Community Alliance. And they are fighting the good fight. They're in there in Parliament arguing and going through the process of pointing things out. And they've sort of got some moderately positive news. They think that a lot of these regulations aren't gonna get through, but the truth of it is we don't know, and they don't know the rest of the story until it's actually put down to where everyone can read what the police minister's putting forward. So there's a politics game going on, and I suppose there's my comment to go with it. We don't know what's happening in a real step of what's going forward, but this is something that the government is pushing forward, and it's not just Western Australia. Western Australia are the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, but how it goes over here is really what other states in Australia are looking at doing. Very much use us as a test, as the guinea pig, see what actually happens, see what they can get away with, and do that over there. So I haven't got much to tell you on that score. What I do want to, but I suppose, is put forward some perspective for people who don't understand. There's people on the other side of the world, there's people on the other side of the country that have, I think, a little bit of a mixed problem in understanding what we're talking about. For the anti-gun crowd, they also, they no doubt have the view of why do you need guns at all? But what's wrong with limiting the amount of guns? Surely that's safe for everyone because guns are bad. So they have this sort of perspective. And you know, if you are in the anti-gun camp, then that's a perfectly logical perspective. My perspective is different to that. Yes, I don't want more restrictions on firearm owners. We already have too many. It already is a very difficult thing for a sport that I find not only very enjoyable, but it's also, in every sense I've ever seen, a positive influence in people's lives to be involved in a firearms sport in some form or another. That's my perspective for sure. But my main problem is unelected government that are behaving as a ruling class, that are making decisions for us. That's the problem I see. The likes of the conversation of it's the police trying to take the guns of us listen, the police force are the police force. They are legislation enforcers, but they are individuals, good guys, bad guys, the whole lot. It's not the police we're actually talking about. It's a government department, and it's the heads of that department which are our problem. And I would say that's the same for many government departments. I can't say for the rest of the world how it's run, but in Western Australia we have a slew of government departments. They periodically change their name and they periodically change what they take control over. Our problem is not just the police department, which is the police department, nice simple name. We also have the mines department, which is, now I did write it down so I'll remember this stuff. The mines department is the Department of Mines, Industry, Regulation and Safety. The department that looks after national parks, which is also then starts to influence in the firearms world in the way of what you can or can't do out in the bush, but it also stops people where bushwalkers and people who just want to go and look and experience a bit of our native bush. They are departments that are now taking that away, closing off some of that land. That department is the department that looks after our national parks, believe it or not. Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development. We have the Department of, what's that one there? The Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions. Well, that's actually that's actually a national parks one. The other one is to do with fisheries. I can go on. Great big long names. They change their name every so often, cost us literally, the taxpayers, literally millions of dollars because they change their titles over and swap some of their portfolio of what they look after around. We do that all the time. This is the unelected part of our government, which is actually our driving problem in this situation. These are people that paper pushers, as they used to be called. Now they'd be, I don't know, keyboard warriors. That's not the right term. But these are government departments that are making these rules. Government departments that are like the police department, full of the good and the bad of the world, as the rest of the world is. There's all whether they're the right person for the job or the wrong person for the job. In government, you tend to have the job and there's that old, they never go down, they always get promoted. It's not an area that forces the cream to the surface. It much more ends up with people being promoted to get them out of my department sort of area. But governments all over the world, I'm sure, are like that. And I don't want to speak ill of any of the people in this place. I suppose what I really want to point out is that these are departments, and if you see, that is our problem. It's our unelected government, which is one of our problems. There's some of the elected government. It's largely our unelected government members, unelected civil servants that are no longer behaving like our civil servants. They make rules for you and you will do those rules, and they will force that on you. We've seen that in lots of things recently, but in actual fact, if you look at it through that's our actual problem. Our problem is not the police force. The problem is the police department. The individuals, like I said, good guys, most of them. They're bad guys there too, same as on the streets, but it is actually the department and the heads of the department. And then you can go to the heads of all these other departments. And if you view it through that perspective, then you realise that the fisheries that are coming under major pressure because of the department, the national parks that are getting things changed around and coming under pressure there. Bushwalkers can't walk through some of our bush because of our departments. There are beaches that have been fenced off. I've heard recently of a couple of beaches down in Esperance on the south of Western Australia. It's a town called Esperance. Out around there's beaches that are literally chained off. People can't go fishing on them anymore. It's not just fishing, they can't go on the parks. This is because of departments. The likes of pretty much everything that we do and in Western Australia, going out into the bush, going and our recreation of what it means to be a West Australia is being taken away by unelected government officials. Departments that literally earn thousands or millions of dollars, take millions of taxpayers' money, and to the largest degree it appears at least like they're making rules to justify their salaries, sort of thing. Really, it comes down to probably the wrong people in those jobs with the wrong perspective. Rather than someone who's interested in fishing and trying to make a better fishing industry and fishing recreation, we've got someone who is wants to stop everyone fishing and wants the fisheries to be left alone because they're a full-blown nature nut. Nothing wrong with a guy who looks after and understands the full perspective, but you get the wrong person in that job and you start to get the wrong decisions. This is the type of thing that's happening. There is other things that are bigger than that I've certainly heard of from the United Nations, which are interfering in our country. As to beyond that point, I can't say a lot about it, I don't know. But if we view it from and stop and realise what's actually happening, this is unelected government that are behaving as a ruling class. If we look at it that way, then rather than just being the gun guys that are truthfully and to a degree rightfully frightened of even standing up and going to a protest or going to stand up for their rights because it's used against them so aggressively in the media, it has been previously. Much prefer to be quiet and looking for other people to lead them to where they can get behind someone, but actually standing out there is difficult when it's been so good for so long. But we are also suffering from the old frog in the pot of water. The temperature's rising, we're getting close to boiling, and everyone's happily just dealing with the hot water. There isn't too much longer to go. But if you join in all the other people that are influenced by these government departments, whether that's the four-wheel drive clubs, whether that's the fishing clubs, whether that's the farming industry and the sheep trade, that sort of thing, the pressure that's coming on from government departments, you join all them together, and then we stand out there in the sun and we politely, friendly, with our girls, with our wives, with our girls, with our best foot put forward, then that has to be something that has to be heard. We make our voices known as the group that are not happy with our unelected government making decisions for us, and say, listen, it's not okay. We're going to be looking forward to changing that, and if you're not the right person for the job, we're looking forward to changing you from your job. Make people listen by numbers. The next thing that comes into the moment there's that sort of stuff, and this is not my talk, this is what I hear. The moment that said, there's someone in the crowd, there's someone in the group that says, oh no, you can't protest, it'll just be used against you. Look what happened in Canada, look what happened to the truckers up there. Our government will do the same thing to us. They'll take your bank account away from you, sort of stuff. Well, listen, if you do it in the wrong fashion, yes. But if you do it as a group and you do it in the right fashion, then I don't think so. When they talk about a protest, they seem to think of a French protest where there's burning flags and there's riots in the streets. We're West Australians, we don't need to do it like that. What if every football oval in every country town and in the cities as well, what if every football oval had 500 to 5,000 people properly organised to stand there and have, let's call it the WA big breakfast, and go out there to have fun, have the kids along, sausage sizzle, whatever it is, in the way of whether it's breakfast or it's bacon or it's or coffee and cake, whatever it is, but bring people along, have the discussion, but stand out there with our main thing, not about taking the guns away, not about stopping the four-wheel drives, not about stopping us fishing, about all of it, or the whole lot. And the whole lot is we want our governments to be civil servants again. We want them to do what the people want. But unless we stand up and say it loudly, the only people's voices that are being heard are the ones that live in the middle of the city and are really happy with this process, really happy with taking away the freedoms of what the rest of us Western Australians hold very dear. Anyway, that's just a thought. You know, as for what people do, I don't know. I would like to see, and I know a lot of people would like to see, something where people's feet are, or people's faces are out in the sun and there to be photographed as part of, we would like our state to get back to where it was. We'd like it to come back to where it's a government for the people and by the people, rather than a ruling class and us doing as we're told. Anyway, that's some thoughts on that one. I'm not certainly here to lead. My video is very much about, I suppose I haven't got much to tell you on what's going on. We're waiting to see what actually happens and see where it goes. There is a fight in place. Like I said, the likes of the WA Firearms Alliance are there talking and trying, and certainly waving our flag, and certainly they're trying to hold people to account. They give back information that there is members of Parliament that are starting to think twice about pushing through something that's probably going 5 steps too far. But yeah, listen, we haven't got much to say of it. The other thing is there is some conversation. I don't think enough. I think we all should be talking. I think that the four-wheel drive club should be closer to the shooting, should be closer to the fishing. I think all of us that enjoy our state should understand we're under the same microscope, and that microscope is coming from the sun and it's trying to burn a hole in us. and we got to put some shade on and get up there and turn that microscope over and point it at the unelected officials that are causing this. So listen, that's my thoughts on that one today. Hope that made some sense. Thank you very much for checking in, and we'll catch you next time.